Welcome to No Instructions. I'm Bob.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Matt.
There he is.
There he is.
I mean, we did this once. How can I not know?
Right on cue. After
That
a
was
few seconds.
embarrassing.
You've had so much practice
Matt
of doing
Whitman.
it that one other time.
Matt Whitman is back with us, and we're going to talk The Mandalorian. If you listened a few weeks back, it's weird doing podcasts with headphones. I'm not used to it.
Yeah, no.
If you were with us a few weeks back, Matt came and talked about The Mandalorian, and it was like the wrong time to do that show. Excellent show. Excellent discussion. Matt, I'm glad to have you back. But that was the wrong time because so much stuff happened in The Mandalorian like the next week.
Can't help but feel like that's my fault.
Totally. We'll blame it on you. Sure. So we are going to wrap up the entire season, I think. Go through it. But before we get to that, Matt, welcome back. How you doing? You ready for Christmas?
Yeah, things are good. Christmas and my birthday.
Oh, that's right.
Christmas in the morning, birthday at night, Twinkie cake. It's not even Twinkie cake. It's a ding dong. Like it's like a Twinkie, but my mom doesn't know the difference, so she calls it Twinkie cake. But it's actually ding dong cake. But it's amazing.
I remember you talking about that one time.
Your birthday's
dong,
on
yeah.
Christmas, and Bob, your birthday is on 4th of July.
Yes.
So we just need to find other guests to the show that have holiday-related birthdays.
Or we just
4th of
create a
July.
holiday
Maybe
on
I'll
your
call her,
birthday
write you a letter.
and then just make one up.
I'm down for that. It's 3 days after yours. You can
What's
call
your
it
birthday, Josh?
the
You got
7th,
anything, or is
the
your birthday
7th of
just
July.
trash?
No, my birthday's awesome. It's everybody is done. Fireworks are on discount.
There you go.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
The sunburn has probably died down by the time it's my birthday on the 7th. Yeah, it's a good day.
Yeah, do people give you a lot of presents and they're like, oh, sorry, this is your 7th of July present and your birthday present? Or are they thoughtful enough to separate those two things out?
It's good. They're like, well, you had your birthday steak earlier. See, but my son was born the day before me,
Oh,
or
boy,
before
that detracts.
my birthday. That would have been weird. So now it's his birthday.
Yeah. You got to
And
kind of give that
I thought
one
maybe
up.
we were going to talk about Tenet.
Whoa. We could do that another time.
Yeah, we could.
I'm my own dad. No,
Cool.
I get it. I get where we're at.
Yeah.
So how do you want to do this, buddy? What's the plan?
I don't know, man. I don't have a plan. I'm just really excited. You and I talked on the phone the other night, and we intentionally did not talk about Mandalorian, but we talked about Star Wars a fair amount.
That present remains right.
It got me, again, excited to talk with you about this stuff. I don't know. I think we should just jump in. I guess maybe just like overall thoughts of the season and then some stuff that stuck out, highlights, something like that.
Okay, who goes first?
Go for it. This is another thing. I was supposed to tell you to buy a Lego set because it's really hard to build a Lego set and talk about something with an intelligent voice. And since we're building and you're not, you sound way smarter than us.
Yeah, you're what's called paying attention.
That's why. Not because you're smarter than us.
It's an advanced technique.
Anyway, so
I'm
I
just
forgot to give
formulating
you
one
to get
thought
you
at
to
a
get
time
set.
instead of two.
Yeah. So
No,
I don't know, man.
I got
Yeah,
nothing.
just jump in and kick it off. Thoughts?
All right. I still am where I was at the halfway mark, which is when we talked last. I just think this is a really delightful show. That said, I think I liked the first season and the first half of the second season the most. And even though there was a ton I really liked about the way the second half of season 2 rounded out, there are a few things that I'm just still not quite sure what to make of, and I'm hoping that we can use this as some therapy time to help me decide what I actually thought of how season 2 rounded out.
I kind of imagine that you and I have a similar take because I have that same feeling. We got to the end of the last episode, and my whole family and everybody on the internet, it's like, oh, that was the best piece of content ever, and oh, you did it, and blah. And I was like, I mean, it was good, but like I kind of have a sinking feeling about this. And so the sinking feeling, what, you're looking at me like you're disappointed.
Yeah, we seem to be role reversed every time that we talk about Star Wars. I usually have that feeling, and
Yeah.
you don't.
Well, so
That's how you get good radio.
here's my feeling that I, at the very end of, maybe not, I'm not with you on the whole second half of the season. Oh, that was great. But the last episode, got to the last frame of the last episode, post credits scene, and I was like, I kind of feel like they're about to destroy everything that they've built, because they hadn't announced that the Boba Fett thing was a separate show. They just kind of like put this weird title on screen, and you didn't know if that was a separate show or season 3.
That was weird.
It felt to me like, obviously this is not the truth now, but it felt to me like, well, I guess we're done telling that story. Now we're going to go talk about Boba Fett. And I'm like, no. This is like the best thing that Star Wars has had in a really long time. Don't go backward. You just went backward. You brought Luke Skywalker back. You went backward. We don't need that. Don't do it again. Go forward. That was my feeling. And so we got to the end of that episode, and I was like, I don't know about this. Like, I feel like we might have just gotten taken. That's how I felt.
How did you feel about Boba Fett in general in the season?
I was actually really glad that they brought him back, that they gave him a fair amount of character, like at least, fulfilling his obligation, the thing, his commitment. And they actually made him tough and made him worthy of the clout that's been put on him since the very beginning.
Yep.
So I was happy about that.
I just liked seeing the dad bod in that armor.
Yeah,
that was a win for all of us.
It's good to feel represented in
hey,
Star
I'm
Wars
a
universe.
fat sack of crap too. I wonder if I could cave in the helmets of a few stormtroopers with an exaggerated stick.
Yeah.
It was like when Peyton Manning was 109 years old and could barely throw the football down the field. Every completion, I'd be like, that's me. I could play in the NFL still too, with this body. Yeah, I like the fact that he's just kind of old and beat up, and so what? Cram him into the armor and let him be awesome. It was fun. I liked him.
And the fact that they now are not planning on just like he had a couple episodes and now he's done. Like they're actually giving him more with that in mind, right? He's not a young guy. He's not like a new character that's real shiny or whatever. He's old and busted and angry and grouchy and has a really raspy voice, but we're getting more of him. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, me too.
In the book
Super
of Boba Fett,
disappointed that that having a series of him unfortunately precludes the Bib Fortuna series I was really looking forward to. That's a pity.
Well, there's always some prequel, maybe
That's right.
his story in between when Jabba died and when he died.
Yep.
It's in there.
No one's ever really gone.
That's right.
Sorry, Josh, you were saying.
Well, no, back to the book of Boba Fett. Jon Favreau said that it's like an intermediary between season 2 and season 3 of The Mandalorian. So, season 1, season 2 just finished. Then it's going to be the book of Boba Fett coming out December 2021, and then season 3 of The Mandalorian.
It also comes out in December, though. That's the thing.
I didn't think.
That's what
that
I
was
thought.
the original confusion because they.
He
announced-
was on Good Morning America and said it was going to come after. So, he didn't give a release date for Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, that was the original announcement, was that Mando 3 was going to be around Christmas of 2021. And that's what got me scared about it when they said the Boba Fett thing. I'm like, oh no. They were just being like coy.
They could do like a crossover episode, like when New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine got together.
They already did that. That was
Yay.
Anyway.
So, Matt, you said that...
I don't want to move away from Din Djarin.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Bob, to put a bow on that part of our conversation. I care about him. And I can't remember if you and I were talking about this when I was driving home the other day and we were talking. I have never cared about a Star Wars character as much as I care about The Mandalorian. And I hurt with him when his adopted kid got taken away by Luke Skywalker, who, get ready for it, I don't care about. I think he's awesome. I care about where he fits in the story. But Natasha Station power converters, that's what I think of when I think of Luke Skywalker. Like, I still think of him as being a whiny 70s kid with a bowl cut. I don't like Mark Hamill's internet game. I don't think I'm sure he's a lovely guy, though. I'm not a Mark Hamill fan. I'm not a Luke Skywalker fan. I don't like his performance. I don't think he's a particularly good actor. Nothing Star Wars has ever done other than maybe the soul-crushing moment of realizing where you came from as Luke Skywalker at the end of Empire. Other than that, he's the hero. I need him to go and defeat the bad guys.
Right.
But The Mandalorian, I love him. I care deeply about his fate. He is a person to me, and he's like me. He doesn't have space wizard powers. He just trained something up and tried really hard. Well, I trained up some things, and I try really hard too. I mean, it doesn't involve killing people, but like, I don't know. I can relate to that guy, and I can also relate to what it is to have this heart that is capable of tremendous compassion, and also this heart that disappointingly is capable of maybe indifference at times that you need to get by with things. And to see him grow, to see him change, to see him hurt, to see him have a little bit of a sense of humor, to see him wrestle with his fundamentalist upbringing. Guess what? I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I can really relate to that. And I care about him. And I don't like seeing him get punched in the face repeatedly by a giant robot.
Ooh, that was a good scene.
And so for me, maybe where I feel a little bit of hollowness is I felt like the second half of the season ceased to do the things we were gushing about last time we got together and talked here, which was taking us deep inside the character of this guy, and it got to be more fan service. Well, I am a fan, and I want fan service.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I really, really like it. But at the same time, like the last couple episodes it feels like they're about everybody but the character that I love.
Yeah,
I
would
relate
agree
to,
with that.
I care about. And yep, there's Luke Skywalker. It's nice that we finally got to see him be awesome. I've always wondered what the legend surrounding Luke Skywalker is when I see all these other Jedi who can do all this stuff, and Luke Skywalker can complain about power converters. That's his thing. Okay, now I get it. All right, I stand corrected. You're awesome. That was awesome. Apparently you're emotionless and awful. I mean, at least you let him say goodbye, but not a hint of empathy.
Yeah.
And so that was tough. But yeah, I don't know. I don't care about all the ancillary characters. I care about the Mandalorian. It's little. The stakes are small. It's about his heart and the heart of a space orphan who desperately needs a dad. And that's the thing that makes me love the show. The other stuff is fun. It's cool. But I wanted more space orphan who desperately needs a dad, and the dude coming to grips with it, him being a dad. I really liked that.
Josh, what were your thoughts about the last episode?
I thought you talked about fan service, and Bob, you and I talked about this a little bit. I think that the last episode was a really good mix of resolution to the story for at least the first two seasons, the story arc, and the right amount of like titillating fan service. And I think that this was the last episode in particular to round out the first two seasons was better Star Wars than the sequel trilogy.
Well, okay. Now, if those are the standards by which we're going to evaluate this, let's reframe the whole conversation. I mean, yes, Josh, I strongly agree with your take.
But I see that. I don't think it's perfect. I think a lot of people, the reaction, like when the X-Wing flew up, I was like, maybe there's only one, so it's not the two guys we saw earlier.
Right.
And then as soon as Grogu had his little ear, I'm like, all right, I know who that is. My excitement with that moment was like, okay, this is cool. But my kids around me made that moment. And this is different for me because I have watched all of these episodes by myself because I wanted to focus on them and I thought that my kids would be a distraction. And then we would watch them in the afternoon. But like, I got to have an excited moment with them, and it was really fun. And I kind of squealed and recanted my hands up like a little kid when R2 showed up. And when I cared so much more about R2 showing up than I did Luke. I think Luke's like fight scenes smashing up the Dark Troopers were awesome. Super awesome scene. Very reminiscent of Rogue One.
Yes.
And so what I didn't like the most about that was that Harry and the Hendersons type moment that Din Djarin and Grogu had.
Well, I'm glad Din Djarin didn't punch Grogu in the face.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting
at him
to
tell
give him
get out of here.
To give him a little flick.
Get out of here. We don't love you.
Yeah. And they were going to have that moment, that John Lithgow and Bigfoot moment where he was like,
a monster.
you don't belong here. It's good for you out there with your people. and just to give him a little shoe. And I remember, like, when he took off his helmet, my oldest son started crying with that moment. And he was moved. And I'm like, that's good that you're moved.
My dad's oldest son started crying too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My take on that, maybe a hot take. It would have been more impactful if he didn't take his helmet off in the previous episode.
Yeah, now I strongly agree with that.
I really like the previous episode. I really like Bill Burr in the previous episode for a lot of different reasons. And we talked about how when Din took his helmet off, it was just really great acting. Technically, yeah, it was really good. I think it was ill-timed. And I think when he took his helmet, if he would have taken his helmet off for the first time other than season 1, when he was dying, like, that moment would have been it. That little tear. I don't know. It seemed predictable up to that point. And so I thought it was great. Super thought it was great. I can't relate to the, like, losing a child, having your child, like, go off to college. So that part I just watched in the moment. I couldn't transfer a part of me onto it. So I'm sure that it was extremely impactful for a lot of people and very, very gratifying. So I thought the finale itself was great as resolution. And yes, Matt, it was way better than the sequel trilogy. That's an easy softball.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, just making sure.
No, yeah. We're on the same page about that one.
I can relate to that separation. We have 3 kids at home, but we've had 6 total. But because of our membership with the church, we've donated every other one to the Church of Scientology. And it's been difficult every time to hand those off to Tom Cruise, and he's not terribly empathetic when that goes down.
Just put your mask on when he's trying to make a movie.
I think about them sometimes. Sometimes I wonder if I should sign up for a different religion. I wonder if I'll be allowed to see them again. But that made that moment maybe even more touching for me.
Wow.
I'm sorry. That was as far as I could go.
That was pretty good.
Nah, I broke.
I like with the taking off his mask earlier in the season. I think, I mean, I kind of get your point that it would have been a bigger single moment at the end. But I think as a way to get him to that point, I think you had to start showing that he was beginning to shift in what he thought was the most important thing. And I think by taking it off in front of a somebody that he obviously didn't want to, and a situation where he never would have otherwise, it wasn't like out of, I'm taking it off so you can see my real eyes. It was, the only way to make this happen is for me to take it off. I think those are 2 different things. So I kind of get your point, but I think if he hadn't taken it off in the Bill Burr episode, it would not have moved him as a character closer to where he ended up. He would have just been that same guy until the very end. And I don't know that
we'd be making Game of Thrones season 8 charges against the show for causing a Daenerys Targaryen character leap. Well, it was foreshadowed. No, this was not foreshadowed. We see the character evolving, and his behavior in episode 8 is in keeping with his behavior in episode 7. And when that happened in episode 7, which, by the way, I loved episode 7. Mm-hmm. I thought that was peak Star Wars, peak TV. That's one of the best episodes I've ever seen of a TV show. You take the elements of Inglourious Bastards, which we need to break down probably separately. Mm. You take, the jungle scenery, the motley crew of rough and ready infiltrators, the tension, the pressure. It was really well done. But I muttered aloud, which I try not to do too much because I want to ruin the show, when he removed the helmet. There's a clock on it. You got to pick right now. That machine in the mess hall is effectively screaming at him, do you love your warrior cult or the kid more? 5, 4, 3, 2. No, I love the kid more. I love the kid more. I love the kid more. The helmet's off. There we go. I mean, that's what's going on inside. Yeah. And then Pedro Pascal removes the helmet, and he acts like somebody who's never outside of a helmet. The performance was sensational. It wasn't just, oh, no, we're going to get interrogated. Oh, you just shoot your way out. You're the Mandalorian. You're fine. That wasn't the discomfort entirely. The discomfort is, I don't know what it is not to have a bucket on my head.
Yeah.
This is just strange. But in that moment, I muttered out loud, he loves the kid more than the Colt. And so the rubber met the road for the character, which is great writing. Put him in a situation where we get the true test of what your heart is. The things that, as dads, right before you drift off to sleep in your pre-asleep, slightly waking dream, when you're picturing how much you love them and what you would do to protect them. And at least for me, my brain will occasionally wander to difficult situations that test my heart. And I try to snap out of it and wake back up just to make it go away. But as much as we want to avoid thinking about those impossible things, good writing puts a character we love and who we're allowed to get to know in situations where we find out, rubber meets the road. What do you love? What is Soren Kierkegaard? I mean, it was written in Danish, so I don't know if it's the right English translation, but I've always heard it translated as purity of heart is to love one thing. That's what this great existential philosopher said. So who you are at the deepest level is your singularity. What do you love if you can only pick one thing? What is your point? What is your purpose? What is the deepest romance of your heart? And the answer is, I love that kid. And that moved me.
Yeah.
That was more powerful for me emotionally than the moment where he gave the kid away. Is you got to pick, and that's your true heart. That's who you really are. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think so too.
You're a dad.
I mean, like in the last episode when he took it off, like it was nice. For me, that was about the kid. That was about him showing the kid how he felt. Not necessarily showing us, but in the mess hall, it was about showing everybody else, or nobody else, I guess, depending on how you look at it. You know, it was a necessity thing. The second one was all about, I'm finally going to let the kid know how much he means to me on his way out, you know. In the mess hall, though, one of the things that I didn't pay attention to in the moment, and I read something after the fact that was talking about it, was how, Pedro Pascal has he's a great voice. You've seen a lot of you've heard a lot of his voice acting, seen a little bit of his physical acting. But once he had his helmet off, the physical acting like really kicks up a notch. And when you go back and watch it, you see the distinct difference between how his shoulders are posed on how he physically acts when his helmet is on and off. So once he takes it off, his shoulders drop, and then every time the guy calls his name or says something to him, he turns his entire shoulder, not his head, because he doesn't know how to do that. He's used to having to move his body to where he wants to see.
How about that?
And so when he's sitting at the table with the other two guys, he's looking down the entire time. He doesn't know how to make eye contact because he's seeing colors that he doesn't typically see. He's not looking through a visor. He doesn't have the confidence that he's always had with his security blanket around his face. And so when you go back and watch those, like, he really physically changes. And then as soon as he puts his helmet back on, he's back to the same guy. He takes charge. He tells Bill Burr what to do, where to fire. We're going out this way. You know, it's like a snap on and off. I didn't catch that in the moment, but when you go back and watch it, you see like, wow. Like, I don't know Pedro Pascal as an actor. I know who he is, but I've never really seen him in much stuff, so I don't have a lot of context. But to see that, I'm like, wow. Like, this dude, he's good. You know, maybe that's
you
direction.
watched Game of
maybe
Thrones,
that's
though. You saw him as Oberyn Martell, right?
Do what?
You saw him as Oberyn Martell. You watched Game of Thrones?
I've seen like a season and a half of Game of Thrones.
Oh, then you did not run into Oberyn Martell.
No.
Yeah, I saw him in Narcos, and he was really good in Narcos. I hadn't watched Game of Thrones either.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you, part of the reason that his character is so beloved in Game of Thrones is that he confronts effectively the old injustice that is the initiation act of the entire story, of all of the tension and friction between these households, and everybody else now is playing politics and not acknowledging the horrible atrocity that happened and exactly who carried out that horrible atrocity. And Oberyn Martell strolls into the city that is the seat of power, and he does not give a crap about your politics, about your niceties, about your falsehood. He shows up and makes out with whoever he wants to. He shows up and says whatever he wants to. People hit him with niceties, and he fires back with this sharp tongue. And it's so refreshing after seasons of guardedness and falseness. But it's also just his charisma. His performance as an avenging family member come to finally call truth on unending bullcrap. It's convincing in all the subtle physical ways that you caught in episode 7, Bob. And I think that's why people love Oberyn Martell as a character, even though he doesn't factor very much in the story. He's an absolute fan favorite character, and they picked the right guy. And I kind of even like the fact that he looks a little bit pudgy and white from being in a helmet.
Yeah, he's all sweaty.
They didn't
and
have him take the thing off and look like somebody that you'd paint onto the cover of a romance novel.
Yeah.
With some half-clad woman fainting in his arms as he looks off toward the sunset. I mean, he looks like
Yeah, it had hair.
kind of a chubby Chilean dude with sort of functional facial hair and real nasty helmet head. And like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that seems right.
Yeah.
And he pulls it off. He looks so vulnerable and human. And yeah, but I didn't catch the stuff you just said about season 7 though, Bob. That's a great read, great catch.
Yeah. So we talked last time a lot about Ahsoka, and that was before Ahsoka showed up. And you mentioned how much you like that character. I mentioned how I maybe don't know as much about it. So Josh, what did you think about the Ahsoka presentation? And then I want to hear from Matt about it, because I don't have probably as much of opinion as maybe the two of you do.
I really liked it. I really liked her showing up in the moment. After the episode, not knowing that they were going to make a standalone Ahsoka series, it made your mind race about where the rest of this season was going to go. And I think that that's really good storytelling and really good marketing on Disney's part. And then whenever it just kind of abandoned it, I'm like, oh, well, what's going on with that? And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, well, she's going to get her own show. And you're like, oh, okay. So after the fact, it was like, well, you just put a character in there just to announce your spinoff. Seemed like it lessened the story, but not lessened Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. Didn't lessen that episode, which I thought was really good. I think that fight between her and the bad lady at the end, their fighting style, where she did the little shimmy, and it was a lot of footwork, and it was very samurai and beautiful. It wasn't an all-out brawl. It was ballet and just sharp attacks and then sizing up your opponent. Super loved that fight. I think it was really, really good. It was just the after the fact part. I'm like, oh, so she's not going to be in the rest of the series. I'm like, no, okay. I was hoping, like we talked about with Bill Burr, to come on board.
Yeah,
get on the ship. Let's just get everybody, and we'll overwhelm Moff Gideon with the all-star deck.
Well, it felt like they were going to build a Magnificent Seven, right? Like they were like, oh, we're going to pick up the sorcerer, and then we're going to pick up the sniper, and we're going to pick up the this and the hand-to-hand person, and we got this team. We have all the bases covered.
They just need a mage.
Yeah, which I guess she would have been. Anyway,
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I thought too. So then when she was like, no, I'm not going to go. I'm like, oh.
You need to train him. Nah.
Huh, well.
Because, he likes you.
Yeah.
He likes you.
That raises a question. What's more important than training the kid? Hey, what else are you doing?
She's looking for Ezra.
She's looking for Ezra and Thrawn.
She's looking for Ezra and Thrawn. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and at this point,
the potential evil of
understand
Thrawn
the
is
gravity
probably
of that.
much greater than the potential evil of the kid at this stage. Like he's more present, a more present danger, I would imagine. But so Matt, what did you think about Ahsoka? Like the way that they presented her, liking that
spectacular. Yeah, I my kids melted. That's what they've been waiting for. They just couldn't shut up. It was hard to watch the episode. They were just so overwhelmed with excitement. And thank you for not cheating us out of time by building all this suspense. No. Scene opens.
Yeah.
Misty, dead forest. 2 white lightsabers illuminate. Perfect. That's how
that
you
was
write the
good.
first sentence
Yep.
of the script. Rock and roll. Let's do this thing. I loved the way it felt like we were attacking a medieval Japanese fortress, something from the era of Tokugawa or something like that. And you've got this Ronin, this rogue samurai who is out to dish out some justice. And I just loved the way it was framed. And to me, that episode is the epitome of what the whole thing has been. The whole thing has been a samurai space epic Western. So you have 2 showdowns going on in the same moment. One is 2 guns on hips, twitching fingers, not breaking eye contact. Who's going to draw first? Old West showdown. But the Old West showdown is being informed by what they can hear with clinking metal and sword samurai style dueling happening just over that wall. I've never seen. For me, one of the measures of a good program, a good movie, is if I get done and somebody says, "What'd you think?" and I say, "I've never seen that before."
Yeah.
That's good, because I've seen most of it. I watch it all, and I've never seen that relationship, that juxtaposition, and I loved it. And just in general, the way Rosario Dawson clearly put in the time and effort to understand Ashley Eckstein's inflections, the gal who voiced Ahsoka, everywhere else that we've seen Ahsoka, the effort she put into the fighting style, the technique, which is really singular among Jedi, or I am no Jedi, almost Jedi.
Yeah.
It was a blast. I thought it was so much fun, and I liked that she didn't get in the Razor Crest and she didn't go along on the adventure. It reminded us that this is not The Mandalorian featuring Jedi. It's just The Mandalorian. And
Until it was.
You can't. Well, but you can't. But even then, the Jedi just left again.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, why would a Jedi just go and hang around with a bounty hunter? That's just stupid. Like, would you expect us to believe a show called Bosk? Oh, and also Mace Windu just hangs out. Like, what are you up to, Bosk? That's far more interesting than the little things I'm trying to resolve in the galaxy. Let me help you on your next quest. It's stupid. What I like about The Mandalorian is that it is smaller in significance than the whole Jedi big picture thing. Let them go be rock stars. But you can let us know that the stakes are high simply by the reality that if The Mandalorian's story overlaps with a Jedi for a second, whoa, you've come closer to the center channel of the big narrative thrust of everything that's going on in the galaxy right now. And those little dips into it are plenty for me. So I'm glad she didn't get on the Razor Crest.
Yeah,
I'm glad they're working on different projects.
That's fair enough.
Well, with that, now Din Djarin is the king of Mandalore.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, we got to talk about that. What do you...
Well, real quick before we get to that, back to Ahsoka real quick, because I didn't have a huge appreciation. I mean, I like Ahsoka. It's a cool character and everything, but I had never finished the Clone Wars. Remember we talked last time? Since we talked, I was like, all right, it's treadmill season. I'm going to finish the Clone Wars. And so the next episode was the first post-Bad Batch, like the actual good part of the last season of Clone Wars. That's what I've been watching. And, man, what a flip that was. In, like, the first half of the season, you're like, yay, more clones. And look, there's clones in different costumes. Yay, there's more clones.
Special kind of clones.
And then you go to Siege of Mandalore. Oh, my goodness. It was so much better. And, yesterday, I finally watched the final episode. Best episode of Clone Wars. Bar none. The last one.
Yep.
So good. But it made me wish that I had seen all of that before she showed up in Mandalorian. Because the way she went out and the care that she took of, like, I don't want to kill these clones. Like, they may be after me, but I don't want to be the one that goes after them. Like, that type of mentality, it was so good. I wish I had just gotten that out of the way before she showed up in live action, just because I think I would have appreciated that, interaction and that introduction a little bit more. So
does it inform why she was so hesitant? She mentioned in the episode, like, I can't train him because he's attached to you, and that makes him vulnerable to the dark side. Like, is there anything in extracurricular Star Wars lore outside of her one episode of The Mandalorian that would justify that decision more?
I mean,
Other
I
than
think
what she said?
all of her stuff in Rebels, where she interacted with Darth Vader when she realized who he was, and I thought he was gone, but now I see what happened to him, and that must have been in him the whole time, and then all the stuff she found out about him at the end of the Clone Wars. I think all of that compounded into her decision, realizing the danger. If he's already going downhill, you're probably not going to be able to pull him back from that, I think. Yeah, but I mean, maybe that's kind of a stretch too. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it for the overall season arc.
Yeah. But
in that moment, with her being a Jedi but not a Jedi, seeing the pitfalls that surrounded her, her leaders and her peers, seemed like she would be a good fit to teach people.
A moderate.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially someone that, she knew that he came from Coruscant. She knew his background, so he knew that he was a misfit toy that had been ill-treated by the entire thing. So she got it. She's in on the storyline. She's in on the narrative. And then I just thought it was out of place. Again, I get it for the season arc. But to go I can't train him. That seemed in the moment like a cop-out. And so I had to kind of go well, there's more to this, I guess. But it seemed out of place for that particular character from what I knew of Ahsoka. And the newer Star Wars world super rewards people for having gone back and seen all of the offshoots. But as a standalone character you're introduced to in The Mandalorian in that one episode, it seemed like a very strange decision. Yeah. And I was wondering if that decision was justified elsewhere.
It does not seem like a strange decision to me. From a purity of heart is to love one thing. I mean, who are you at the deepest level of your essence? What is the defining incident and relationship of Ahsoka Tano's life? The defining relationship is her relationship with Anakin. The defining incident is, despite Anakin being the only person who even lifted a finger to help her when she was wrongly accused, even Anakin didn't resolve it. She was hung out to dry, and that defining incident, I think she has to know in some way contributed to Anakin's further corruption. Ahsoka walks out on the Jedi, big deal. Anakin walks out on the Jedi, the entire balance of power of the universe shifts. It's a much bigger deal. She has to own that. She has to feel like somehow she contributed to his failure and his story. So the most defining and heart-wrenching and regret-filled and also rich and beautiful relationship of her whole life is a lot like the one that most people would point to in their lives. It's with dad. It's with mom. It's with whoever should have filled that role but didn't. It's whoever's approval you were dying for. It's for your mentor. And a lot of times mentor-mentee relationships don't age well. And something changes there. And so I've seen this archetype. I've seen this play out in actual people's lives, in my own life, with people who've mentored me and people who I've tried to mentor and failed. I get that. And so I think she looks at it and just says, no, my heart cannot be rightly committed to what this needs to be. I don't know how to train somebody, and there's no way I'm going to do to this adorable little thing what was done to me, even if I set out with no intention to wreck this person, as Anakin set out with no intention to hurt me. I can't guarantee that I won't, and I'm just not taking the risk. She's not bought into the master and Padawan structure. She's not beholden to that. She's no Jedi. So I think she played it real cool. The Mandalorian doesn't need her sob story, and she obviously wanted to play the whole association with Darth Vader thing close to the vest. But I think it's a deep heart level motivation from the thing that defines her the most, that caused her to make up some nonsense bullcrap rationale for why she couldn't do it. The real reason is her heart is broken.
But I agree with you, Josh, that I don't think any of that, well, I agree with you, I don't think any of that is obvious in the episode to somebody who doesn't know who she is already.
No, and I think in the episode, her case was that she likes him too much. I'm like, well, okay, but it seems like you guys are doing a really good duo job. Together, they are getting through to him. And so, again, and looking at it in a stovepipe, like, you guys are a good teaching team.
Yeah.
Like, he has the relationship to Din. He's listening to him. He's affecting him. You have this space wizard. You're of space wizard. It seems like a good Venn diagram.
Yeah.
And granted, they couldn't have done that because of seasons and because of other tangential series, but it seemed in the moment like, yeah, you guys are doing a good job together. Mm-hmm. Like, start the homesteading portion of this Western to where they start not living together, but like they start to teach him and make their own little academy. And then she realizes that, this isn't my real goal. I have to go off and do the thing. I don't know.
Do you think that, okay, so I guess that's not where the storyline ended up going, but I could see a potential future where that type of situation happens. It's maybe not as like a gallivant all over the universe kind of thing, but like okay, now we're going to lock down in this cave and teach you the stuff you need to know. And then it turns out that they are attacked from all sides in that cave. And the episode or the season or whatever could be about, like, how do we protect him long enough for him to learn what he needs? He's back there. We're going to cover the door and just fight off everything that comes at him, long enough for him to get what he needs and not drag him all over the universe. I could see that. Obviously, they didn't set that up anywhere.
I thought it was eventually leading to there was the original Darksaber wielder was a Mandalorian who was on the Jedi Council. I thought that they were trying to groom Grogu into being like a Jedi with the compass and the morals and the power of a Jedi, but the reaction, the dedication, the discipline, the face punchiness of a Mandalorian that could hold that power.
Right. Except that his arms are too tiny and he can't hold the Darksaber.
That's true. That would be really fun.
That is probably.
He would just try to chew on it.
So speaking of Darksaber, you said Din is now the king of Mandalore. How do you think that's going to play out?
Do you all agree, first off, with the internet's take that Bo-Katan couldn't just accept the Darksaber from Din when he tried to give it to her, but she did just accept it from Sabine in Rebels? And it's like, well, she shouldn't have done that in the first place, and...
That was the thing that came to mind immediately when she wouldn't take it. I'm like, oh, she's already done this. Like, she's...
And it clearly didn't work out.
So this would be...
Or she'd
correct
still
me,
have
gentlemen,
it.
if I'm wrong.
And Mandalore would be in good shape. So again, we got to go from the character side. You got to think about what's happened to these people in between and what is their deepest story. What is the thing that most defines them? She was the ruler of Mandalore. Mm-hmm. She's a full-on believer in Mandalore, all stripes of Mandalorian. She wanted to unify the people. She wanted to avenge her. Is Sabine her sister?
No. Satine was her sister.
Yeah. They're just...
Did I say Sabine?
Yeah.
I meant Satine. Yeah. Duchess Satine is who I'm referring to. My bad. And so, she wants to avenge that death. I mean, she's got a great set of motivations, but now Mandalore is glass. So you accepted the Darksaber in a way that was unworthy. You took, in order to fix and preserve the great tradition of your people, you violated the great tradition of your people. And it's like, in my particular expression of religion, I'm a Christian. I think it's true. I think it's important. And so you get this whole message about a God who's gracious and long-suffering and patient with people's problems. And then when you see people try to explain that to others using not patience and not grace and not long-sufferingness, it's like, well, just the way you said it undercut the whole thing that you say you believe. Like, why would anybody want to be a part of that? And I feel like the same thing happened here. The means by which she tried to preserve the values she loved so much of Mandalore were violated right from the front end of her coming to power. And so I think she learned her lesson. I think it's indicative of character growth that she utterly refused it. Now, Moff Gideon is going to, as really the accuser character in the room, the Satan character, he is going to sit there and say that it's all about these rules and you're bound by them. I don't think that's what was going on in her heart. I think she knows what she got wrong last time. and she doesn't want to repeat the mistake. I thought it was a pretty cool moment, and I didn't have any problem with her reacting the way she did the first time, learning stuff in the interim, and reacting differently the second time.
Well, how do you think it's going to play out?
I have no idea where this is going. Like, I'd like to sound smart and have people be like, that guy, he really thinks about things. He's pretty smart. I bet he's right. I had so many theories for how to land the plane on Game of Thrones. It's like, you just do this, you do this, you do this, you fix this thing, you use this mechanism to do it. Boom. Perfect completion for all the character arcs. This would be amazing. I was wrong about everything. And I was wrong about everything, but I still think my version would have been better. This one...
Spoke like a true Star Wars fan.
Everything that I've wanted to see happen in The Mandalorian was dumber than what they did. My opinion has been wrong. Not just in that, I thought they'd do this and they didn't. If they had done my thing, it would have been worse. They've made the right choices. I am humbled. So where does this thing go next? I don't know. I like that I don't know. My ideas are not as good as theirs. So you earned my trust. I'm in. I like the way you guys have handled everything, even when my instinct was to go a different direction. Take me on the ride. Can't wait to see where it goes next.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think, like, the tendency from looking at what's left of the story, what wasn't resolved, which the big thing with Grogu was resolved. And so I think if you look at what's left, it feels like this story that's been narrowing in toward two characters the entire time since the very beginning. It's just been doing this. It feels like all of a sudden it got to a pinch point, and now it's going to go, now we're going to talk about Mandalore. Now we're going to talk about, like, being in charge of a people and what it takes to do that. And I don't like that. I don't want that.
I'm not interested in that.
But that's
at all.
what it feels like. They kind of went like, okay, we wrapped up the little personal story. Now we're going to go big and battle.
Maybe they're going to talk about trade routes.
Ooh. We're going to rebuild the Senate.
Space politics.
Maybe that's what he does. He gets all the way to the throne and was like, Bo-Katan, you're going to represent us in the New Republic Senate. And then she's in the background when Star Killer Base shoots a little thingy. She's like, what's happening? And like, bang. That wraps up her
credits.
story.
Yeah.
I
don't want that to happen.
Well, no, let's round that out. Yeah.
I really hope that
Please, go ahead,
doesn't. But I feel like the way that doesn't happen is that instead of, like, we're about to jump into how Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber back, and we're going to set up this big thing. Oh, wait, what's that I hear? Grogu screaming in a distance? I need to run off and fix that. I need to go save him from that thing. And that takes it back to the small story, which I think is what everybody likes about the Mandalorian.
Then they rock, paper, scissors, and he loses and just throws it at her and gets in the ship and runs away.
Yeah. He, like, just calls her
Here's
a name,
what I hope happens.
She's like, that's it, and punches him. And, yeah. I think that'd be good.
I hope that Luke's Jedi Academy is filled with wacky characters, some of whom are really bad and get divided into the bad Jedi house, and others who are really good and likable, and then they have to play ridiculous Jedi games with rules that don't make any sense, that were clearly established by someone who's never actually played a sport. And it's an incredibly dangerous Jedi training location, and all of the social dynamics remind you a lot of high school.
Yeah, they still haven't announced the Saved by the Bell, the Jedi Years spinoff that's going to happen.
Okay, my point is, I really hope we don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't want another YA lit, you're the chosen one, but you still have to go to this specialized high school for mutants or wizards or Jedi or what. I'm so not interested in that. I don't really want answers as to what happened to Ben Solo. I don't really care what happened at Luke's Jedi training facility. I would be happy to continue in the trajectory that all of the announcement of the new Star Wars material seems to be taking us, which is sequel trilogies. Huh? What now? Nothing about any of these announcements has anything to do with the sequel trilogies at all. They are pretending they didn't happen, and I, for one, would be delighted to join them in pretending they didn't happen. Nothing about them was necessary. I don't like the resolution we got to Luke Skywalker's character. It diminished everything that happened in the established universe prior to the Disney acquisition. And it feels like now they've got the right people with the hands on the controls. They are not trying to give us a moral lecture about political preferences or how they want things to be. They've steered clear of all of that and just given us characters who transcend left, right, religious, a-religious, all of it. They've given us a look into what honest, sincere, moral thinking looks like in a simple way, sometimes in a complex way. They've given us a diverse universe of very different people. And I love where they are taking the story and where they're taking us as viewers. I hated where the sequel trilogy took us. It made no sense. They got money. That's cool. I like money too. You can use it for goods and services. It's incredibly useful. So I get it. Can't judge them for that. But I can judge the storytelling. It was trash. It didn't mean anything. Character arcs went nowhere. I cared about no one. I would love it if that whole thing, either through a J.J. Abrams style Star Trek reset, soft reboot within the actual timeline and physics of the universe. I'd love it if that happened. I would also be fine with just
ignoring it,
pretending we never made those and just ignoring it, and let's stay in the parts of the story that made sense before we wrecked the physics, before we wrecked the character arcs of the things that made sense. And I'd also welcome a Game of Thrones season 9 that does the same thing. The tragedy of Game of Thrones is you had mic drop Shakespeare level amazingness, that it took a perfect storm of storytelling and performance and money and the right moment in history for the story to be told. You get through 6 seasons of that, and as a viewer, I'm like, this is all time legendary, not just like the best show in the last 5 years. This demonstrates an incredible understanding of the human soul, human depravity, the relationship between people and power and the state, and it's amazing. And then, what are you doing? And the tragedy wasn't just that season 8 sucked. The tragedy was that seasons 1 through 7 so didn't. All you had to do was just jog across the finish line without posing, land the plane, even safely, would have been fine. And you've accomplished one of the most incredible storytelling feats in the history of humanity, and you just couldn't do it. You blew it. Star Wars looked like it had vigorously crapped the bed the exact same way, and then this little frog guy and a dude with a trash can on his head come along, and they flip the script for this entire myth that is the myth of all of our, not just childhoods, but adulthoods. This is the unfolding mythology of our lifetimes, and they might be finding a way to breathe meaning and life and transcendence back into it. And if that means dispensing with 3 mistakes, dude, who cares in the big scheme of things? Dispense with the mistakes, track down the stuff that's awesome and good, and take us wherever you want to take us. So that's why I'm cool with feeling like Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway. Like, here I am. I'm at the intersection out in the middle of Texas. I can drive in any direction. Let's go, Star Wars. Just don't take me back to those worthless sequel trilogies. That's the only road that would be dumb to pick.
So my thinking about that, I didn't hate the sequels as much as you did, or as a lot of people did.
That's right.
There were things about them that I really enjoyed. The thing that I don't like is that, and Star Wars has a habit of this. They like tell a story, then go into the future, and they tell another story, and then they go backward. Yeah. And they tell another story that's supposed to somehow fit within a gap. Now that has...
on the same line.
Right, it's on the same line. And that has a place, I guess, sometimes. But they keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it. And I don't want to have a bucket where all the stories have to fit within this bucket. Pour it out and see which way they go, and then just follow a strain and just keep following it and go forward. And so when they announced that the Mandalorian was going to be like post Return of the Jedi, I'm like, I mean, that's cool, but like, let's go somewhere else where we don't know anybody, where we don't have a thing to meet up with in the future that we already know. And so what you're saying, like, if they were to take the sequels and get rid of them, I mean, I'm not saying that that would be my preferred thing, but if they did that, I'd be fine with it, as long as there is a really clear kind of global demarcation of this is what we're doing. From this point on, there is no future. Like, whatever year this is after the Battle of Yavin, this is the future we know of. And if that means that Force Awakens is down the road and it gets pushed off to the side, okay. But we got to know where that line, I would like to know where that line is so that I know what future is out there already and what things are left to be imagined and made up. Because that's the thing that makes me really excited about Star Wars is this, like, unknowable forever universe and like, you know, what Jedi could become, not what we've seen them max out at. I want to know what they could become. And like the whole Grogu going with Luke is that's one of the things I didn't like about it was that, well, we know what happens there, whether he's still there or not. Like, if they stop the series right now, our assumption is that he ended up at the Jedi thing and got killed. Okay. Yep. I don't want that future. I don't want to know that that's a possibility. I want to find out what happens to him. And so I think if they were to do that, were to do another canon reset or, you know, cut off a future or something, I just hope that they're really super clear about what is the story that we're building on, what is the story that we're still building toward, just so that, like, we kind of know what the futures are. That's my opinion on the
I think it's important.
Removing the future.
Yeah.
Well, see, now Matt, you talked about your predictions for Star Wars have been wrong. Mine too, except for the one. I got one finally that I thought that when Boba Fett showed up in the earlier episode, did you see his silhouette? Like, Jabba's palace theoretically is empty. There's a power vacuum in the underworld. Yeah. He is going to take over that underworld and assume that throne. Which I thought was dope. When he walked in there, he shot Chubbs in the neck and just sat down and was like, this is mine now. I love mobster movies and, like, gangster movies and, like, the cartel stuff I think is really interesting and cool, even though it's depraved and terrible. But with that thought, I was really excited when he sat down. I'm like, yay, that could be cool. I'm like, but like you're saying, it all has to tie back somehow, and unless they ignore the sequel trilogy, which I would say that you have one side where it needs to be ignored, where other Star Wars fans, they go, it needs to tie in for storytelling's sake, for the entire franchise's arc. Yeah. So I worry now.
Okay, I have a question and follow-up in a second, but go ahead and finish this thought. I'm just putting a mental pin
I worry now that Boba Fett's thing can be only so standalone, just like The Mandalorian.
Right.
The Mandalorian introduced you to planets that you assume people live there because there's a squid face guy, and they didn't go to the Bears planet where Porkins is from yet.
The Bears.
But... So Boba Fett's planet can go around the universe.
I hope that's what his planet is called.
It better be called the Bears.
Yeah.
There's just like peanut shells on the floor as you walk around and everybody's really tired. But to a point, it'll be his own cool standalone story and go explore the universe. But I feel like it's still going to have to, like you're saying, end up in that receptacle.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, you could say, well, maybe he just the timeline of storytelling is this kind of linear thing, and we keep jumping back and forth in this timeline. Maybe Boba Fett's little bridge just pokes out the side, and he takes an off ramp, and he does his own future thing. But you always know that means Palpatine is still somewhere in the universe building his secret Sith army. You know what I mean?
They took Grogu's blood to maybe make Snoke. Like even in the things that were left open.
Branch, but there's still that thing that's happening out here that's going to happen for another 30 years to go to some end that you don't care about. And anyway, what was your...
Yeah, a dumb, ridiculous thing we don't care about, which leads right into the question I put a pin in. What would you miss from the sequels if it went away? Like if I ask you that about the prequels or the original trilogy, you're going to have a list. Like, let's cancel Han Solo. How would you feel about that? Like, heck no. I'm not doing that. Are you kidding me? What if we got rid of the trash compactor scene? No, I still want that. Okay, what would be the thing? They're like, it would break my heart to see that go away if they got rid of the sequel trilogy.
Benicio del Toro hand down.
Oh my sweet goodness! I don't even know why we hang out.
Porgs? Is that the right answer? Porgs?
Disney would
Porgs?
want you to say
Good.
porgs. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I've never really
milking-
looked at the sequel
milking
trilogy
that monster?
in that lens. I've enjoyed it. I think it has been just additional Star Wars content. I don't think it is really the ending of a story or of the story, but I've never looked at it like, what would I miss if it didn't exist? Or what would I fight to keep in that story?
I mean, for me, honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. They're different. They have problems. They're not perfect. They took you in two kind of different directions. Like, I get that, but I like those. And I think there was still room to take what those set up and turn it into something really good as a way to wrap the whole thing up. I think whenever they got into the room and they were like, okay, who's going to come up with the idea for this one? They just picked the wrong person. They should have picked somebody at the beginning to think of the idea through all three of them. But I still think there was room to salvage it before Rise of Skywalker. And that one, you could take every single bit of, except for Ben Solo's little look right before he took down the Knights of Ren at the end. I missed that. That was a good scene. But other than that, that movie could go away. And
We could get that again in some other set of circumstances.
I think what Matt is
Keep the actor. Do
proposing
it again.
is that while it was salvageable and while you could have made those three movies all work, it's like taking something that is not really working and making it the best it could be when it didn't need, didn't need to start that way in the beginning. And so you're making it its best version, but it's still not the correct
But I
version.
mean, there were things about the first two movies that I really liked. I loved the gray Jedi thing. Hey, we don't have to be so polarized. Just because you're a Jedi doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're a Sith doesn't mean you're... Well, I mean, it does mean you're terrible. But the idea of there being a middle ground, I love that. And that came out way before these movies. Like, that idea has been around for a while in Star Wars. And the fact that they were going to bring it up, I was like, oh, this is going to go somewhere cool. It's going to be a middle road character thing. Mm-hmm. But instead of that, they kind of just said, well, I'm not going to do anything. Instead of being all this or all this, I'm just going to be in the middle and do nothing. That's the part I didn't like. But like, I like the fact that you started Force Awakens with an unknown character who had powers she didn't understand. That was great. And that could have gone in a lot of different places.
I agree.
I wouldn't want them to get rid of that. I just don't like the resolution of a lot of the things that they set up in those first two movies. Even within those two movies, I think the resolutions were not always great. But I really liked Luke in Exile. I just wish he had flipped around and come back to it. I really liked Rey as a character. I really liked the fact that you had a stormtrooper that felt guilt about what he was being forced to do. So I think there was some good stuff there, that they started with.
I agree.
They just didn't handle it correctly.
I
And
think-
still, I've said
But
this from the very
because
beginning.
all those things are on the front end, we can still have all of that. Like the first third of The Last Jedi is the best of the of the whole sequel trilogy, because it is a good setup. Yeah, sure, those are great. I mean, we could do something else too, but that's great. Rey, Daisy Ridley, just charmed the heck out of everybody. The Jakku stuff, it was interesting. It worked pretty well. The ruins of the Empire, where are we now? I loved the conscientious objector Finn character. They did nothing with it. It's only meaningful for the first third of that episode. Then he goes into this weird coward flight thing. Like, that's his arc. He's scared and upset. I don't
He's
care.
really chummy with
And
everybody.
so I went from
and I
being
never understood
really
that.
invested in them to really not caring. So I'd be fine with a reset that even keeps all those characters except Rose, and we just run it again in a way that makes sense and fits in with all the cool stuff that's going to happen on the TV side.
Yeah.
But the worst thing about the sequel trilogy is what you just pointed out, Bob. It's out there now. And it was slipshod, haphazard, ham-fisted, sloppy writing with no unifying plan. So everybody got to take their own swing at how they wanted the myth of our generation to work out. And I'm sorry, I normally I like just give me one good writer and a great script. You can't be doing that. This isn't a movie. It's a different animal entirely. You just can't be sloppy like that. There's too much at stake for the audience. Financially, there's too much at stake. And so, yeah, give us all the elements you love and just start over with everything else. I love your request for a hard line in the sand narratively where we know everything after this date It didn't happen. Stuff got changed. We don't know what's going to go down. We don't know if there's going to be a Star Killer base. Who knows where all of that goes? Cool. I'm in. I would do that. Your terms are acceptable to me.
So you and I were talking on the phone the other day, and we were talking about how this might actually happen, like how they could pull that off with the existing elements. Obviously, they could introduce some new, like, Jedi time travel force power or something like that, you know. But there are mechanisms in place already that could make this alternate future, or make the existing future an alternate future. Which I think
like
is
the
way
place
to go.
between worlds?
Yeah, the world between worlds is like the perfect way to do it. Not that really creates a branch of time, but it lets you reach into the future and change something, which effectively just changes the single timeline, right? So Ahsoka, as they're setting up to be a major character, has access and knowledge to this world between worlds.
Well, in her title card that they put up, the background is
in there. Yeah. So her series could be the mechanism to reset it. How cool would that be?
I would welcome
That'd
that.
be awesome. Character that everybody loves to go fix all the things that everybody hates about Star Wars. Wow.
Well, and something else that came up in our conversation the other night, Bob, is you're saying, take me somewhere completely different. Cool, if you want to go with some of the same established rules of this imagined galaxy that existed far, far away a long, long time ago, cool. And I pointed out to you that Willow is on the list of programs. Nobody's talking about Willow. You want to know what series I'm most excited about? Willow. That's going to be amazing. I mean, it's possible they'll make a huge mess of it, but you go back and you look at the elements of Willow. Why don't we just assume that's in the Star Wars universe? I think it is. You've got 2 Force-sensitive characters in the story, maybe 3. Elora Danan, the High Nelwyn, and Willow himself. Now, they're not any good at it. It's not sharpened or refined like somebody from the Jedi Order or a Sith, but their wizardry looks just like the Force. Bav Morda, Bad Mother, as the antithesis or complement to Darth Vader, Dark Father. I mean, these characters fit together, lock and key. And what's her power set? Well, I mean, a lot of it looks really Sithy. And I don't think it's crazy at all to imagine that this is some planet that is in the development stage of the Middle Ages on Earth. But what would happen if you just added the Force to the Dark Ages on Earth? Well, you would get Willow. Cool. It has creatures. I mean, that feels very Star Wars universe-ish. And so the idea of going and making a Game of Thrones era program with the physics, the rules of the Force, and the universe of Star Wars, and having it only barely intersect with the rest of what's going on, what you're doing at that point is you are planting a flag in the ground and saying, any story we want to tell in any environment ever, any way we want to tell it, can fit into this alternate universe that this new mythos, I mean, it's a coup, is what it is. It's taking full and complete ownership of all storytelling if they connect those 2 universes, and I hope they do.
To take that one step further.
Okay.
What if all of our modern superheroes are actually unknowing Force users, and the existing Earth fits that same mold?
Oh, man.
I mean, then you wreck the entire Marvel Comics back catalog.
Jean Grey is like a Palpatine. She's a cousin.
I mean, maybe they don't know what it is, but I mean, all of those powers could just as fairly be some derivative of Force stuff, I don't know.
I love the idea that what the last 8 weeks were for my family and I, gathering together on Friday nights, planning our day around it, anticipating it, talking about it through the week. I love the idea that if this stuff is of quality, that could be every Friday forever. And it starts to build back into our lives as a family, something that the internet age has stripped from our lives as a family. It builds back community. It builds back a schedule that we don't time shift. No, we'll let this dictate to us when we're when we're going to watch it a little bit more than we dictate to everything else when we're going to watch it. I like the rhythm it's provided for us, and I would do that every week until forever if the shows are good enough.
Yeah.
Well, to think if it was a bingeable series, some of the episodes that are like the transition episodes, one where he's eating the egg and the spiders, like that has its place in the series. It wouldn't mean anything.
Right. You'd pass it by and be
You
done
would.
with
It would be a flash in the pan. They go. It didn't have Luke Skywalker in it, so I don't care as much. Like you can't savor
That's a good take,
even
Josh.
the. It's not even a valley in the series, but it's not like the Darksaber showing up. So you get to hold on to that, and I didn't think I was going to enjoy the weekly slow drip, but it is. It's reminiscent of our childhood, which I think is a really fun thing. Our kids have really never experienced that because we haven't had cable TV in like ever, and so they know DVDs and they know Netflix. And so I really enjoy, like Matt, like you're saying, sitting down, having a thing that on Fridays it's the end of the day, we're finished with it. We can like, wow, that was awesome. It's like, okay, put your jammies on and go brush your teeth. You know, it's like TGIF is over before the evening news.
Yeah.
Like, it's reminiscent of what Star Wars was for me as a kid, and then they're pulling in elements of what just television watching with your family is from being a kid.
Yeah.
But you know what isn't reminiscent about this experience from when I was a kid? What isn't reminiscent is that my dad didn't care at all. We walked out of Star Wars. He couldn't have told you the name of one character. And my dad was and is an excellent father. Just a prince of a man. And he did a great job as a dad. But we did not share story in this way. Yeah, some bedtime stories. I think you maybe read through the Chronicles of Narnia with us, or a couple of the books at least once. But sharing story with dad outside of religious story, a little bit. Music was a big thing for us. Dad's a music guy. So I mean, there's no deficiency to how my dad parented us. Don't hear this as any regrets. But I would have loved it if my dad knew who Luke Skywalker was and knew which particular Ewok was named Wicket. And then when we went to see Willow, figured out and made the connection with me that Wicket and Willow are the same guy. Like that just would have been fun for me to be able to share that thing. So I'm trying to get my dad to watch The Mandalorian right now. I'm like, oh, you'll appreciate the music, and he might get to it someday. He doesn't care.
See, that's one thing that's been really good about what you guys are both saying. My parents come over, and they did this with season 1 too. They come over every Friday night. They're kind of in our bubble, our safety COVID bubble. They come over, we have dinner, and we sit down, the 8 of us, and we watch The Mandalorian, and then we talk about it. Cool. We talk about it throughout the week. Cool. And my parents have started watching Clone Wars because they want to find out who these characters are that they don't know enough about.
What?
And they talk about Rebels, and they're like, wait a minute, we got to the end, and I'm like, oh, like Ezra could show up, and they're like, wait, who's Ezra? Who's Thrawn? She mentioned Thrawn. Who's Thrawn? And so, like, I mean, we've been a Star Wars family from the beginning. So, they've been aware of that. But the fact that they are still actively engaging in this thing that they know I love, they know the kids love, and they now thoroughly love, like they're enjoying it on their own. They're making their own time to watch these cartoons that are made for kids multiple years ago. It's super cool. And that's one of the things that since this season is over, I have thought about, like, how do we keep this going? We have a year before the next Star Wars stuff. What is the mechanism other than just choice to keep our family getting together with our parents, grandparents on a Friday night and spending time together and having a thing that we can like actively talk about rather than just like, oh, did you read the news, or oh, what are you doing at church, or oh, what are you doing at work? What's a fun thing that we can grab onto on a weekly basis and just continue to like, discuss and have that thing together?
They could watch an I Like to Make Stuff
Gather
video
together
every
and power through just power through the whole back catalog of Game of Thrones. The kids would love it. It would broaden their horizons.
They didn't even know incest was a thing.
Yeah. So kids, we're going to talk about incest. So one of the things, though, in regards, and we were talking about this the other night on the phone, in regards to the Marvel and Star Wars announcements, I didn't pick this up, and I don't think they made a big deal out of this, but they announced enough Marvel shows and the dates of those shows that if you look at the calendar, maybe it's not week for week, but you basically have in January a show coming out, in March a show coming out, in May a show coming out. I think that maybe there's one more, but effectively you have a new episode of a Marvel show every week for 6 months straight. That's awesome. And they didn't make a big deal out of that.
Awesome.
But if you think they're doing that with that, they're also going to do that with Star Wars eventually. Maybe not this year, maybe not.
Well, there's your other 6 months.
Exactly. How
Are they making
cool would that
must-see
be?
TV?
Speaking of, a friend of ours watches TGIF. He goes onto Hulu every Friday night and watches all the shows that used to be on TGIF in order to have that experience on Friday nights.
Yeah, I ain't doing that.
But
I don't think those shows were
No, they
good. That's the difference between that experience and this experience. Like, these shows matter and explore things. Every episode of Full House had a canned awe from the audience to tell me how to feel. Like, I don't feel any nostalgia for anything about TGIF other than I really loved and continue to love my family, and I miss that innocent time sitting there watching awful television programming together.
Well, there was the one moment in Fresh Prince where Will Smith was real, and like he got upset when he was talking about his real dad. That's like I'm trying to think back of like all of the TGIF style shows that were just campy and like put themselves in such weird, silly scenarios that it was entertaining but not relatable.
Oh, they were made for a different thing altogether. Yeah.
But I was like, well, there's that one moment
and a different
that could have
moment.
been poignant out of the entire years and years and years worth of multiple shows.
Yeah. There were probably some. All right, well, we're going like almost an hour and 20 minutes. Anything else on The Mandalorian? Matt, Josh?
Oh, there's a ton more, but this was plenty. We covered the bases.
Well, we can do it again. We could do our recap in 6 months before, halfway through the year before season 3 or something.
Okay, which one of the new Star
do
Wars
this
shows,
all
since
day
we're
long.
Star Wars heavy, which one of the new Star Wars shows are you most excited about based on the small bit of information that we know right now?
I'm going to go with the Ewok St. Patrick's Day special. I heard Anthony.
Lando Calrissian Home Shopping Network?
Ugh. I'm going to say Ahsoka because it's the only one that I don't know where it goes.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. That's the one we're pumped for.
I think the...
No, you know what? I'm going to say Willow. I'm going Willow because I'm counting as a Star Wars spinoff. I've decided that is real.
What's the pilot one? Is it Rogue Ranger? Something with Rangers in it?
Rogue Squadron.
Rogue
That's a
Squadron.
movie.
Oh, that's a movie.
Yeah.
Rogue Squadron's a movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
I thought it was a miniseries.
The Rangers of the New Republic is the series, but the
Rogue Squadron
is the movie.
I'm excited about Rogue Squadron because I saw the little short with the director, and she talked about her dad, but she explained that it was the Top Gun of Star Wars, and I absolutely love Top Gun.
Oh, yeah.
I have silver aviation
go and
wings.
get
Like, I
whoever-
love that whole mindset. I
Yeah.
like the bravado. I love all of it, and to put that into Star Wars universe. That's what super got me into Star Wars to begin with. Like, Luke Skywalker was fun. You're a kid in the desert. Hooray. You want to go fly. Yup. And you get a chance to, here's your awesome jet kid with no experience. Go out and do good things.
Yeah.
Yup.
Blow up a space station. Yep.
Yeah. Randy Quaid did it in Independence Day. Luke Skywalker did it. Josh Price can do it. So,
Should be just
Yeah.
that simple.
Yeah.
so I think that's what I'm most excited about. Top Gun in space.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the series. And that one...
I didn't know it was a series. That's
The
why
one
I
that
read it.
sounds interesting, the thing that sounds interesting about that, on top of just the premise of it, is that I think they marked it as like in an unknown time or a future time in the galaxy or something like that. So it might be that thing that jumps past what we know, and that was kind of like, oh, cool. But I think with the series that they announced, I'm sure Obi-Wan's going to be awesome. I can't wait for
Hayden
it.
Christensen's coming back.
But
Oh, I
you know
forgot
what's
about
going to
that.
happen, right? I mean, Cassian Andor, that's probably going to be a cool spy thriller thing.
Yeah.
But he's already
Not that
dead.
interested.
You know, I mean, like all these other ones, maybe the Rangers of the New Republic. I don't know what that is, so I'm not terribly excited about it. But
I heard, even though it could be completely wrong, that it was a buddy comedy. Because the Asian guy who was one of the X-Wing pilots in The Mandalorian was a guy from Kim's Convenience. So, like, he's a comedic actor. And you're introduced to these two random X-Wing pilots. So there's scuttlebutt that is some kind of, like, buddy comedy with these, I don't know, these rebel pilots, perhaps. And
it's possible.
I was really hoping that Solo was going to be the buddy comedy-esque. Like, not be a complete, like, slapstick kind of thing. But it would be funnier between Chewie and Han. And it wasn't. Like at all, so I think that could be a fun a fun little thing.
Yeah,
Star Wars could have.
I did hear that the She-Hulk series that's announced that I'm not at all excited about is supposed to be a legal comedy.
A legal comedy?
Yep,
She's
I did
a
see that. It looks fun.
I love lawyer shows.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, it looks campy and fun. If you know which premises are so stupid and ridiculous and over the top that you can make a joke out of it, it works. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't understand the tone and you're not crystal clear on it, you get Iron Fist.
I do not like Iron Fist.
Okay, maybe we should talk about Marvel stuff on a different episode.
We can talk about all the people that are
should.
supposed
That'd
to
be
be coming into the new Spider-Man movie.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there is more to talk about.
Okay, we will do that in the future.
But I'm going to let you off the
I
hook
appreciate that.
because I've taken us down 100 rabbit holes
All right,
here.
well, Matt, we know where you are. Tell everybody who's listening. I mean, yeah, you're right there in the screen on the computer. But tell everybody where they can find you and all the different things you do, please.
Yep. Anywhere you get podcasts, whether you are a religious person or not, I think you would like the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. It's a daily 10-ish minute trip through the book of Matthew from the perspective of just whatever the thing says. Try to ask the honest, obvious questions and poke at it and jab at it. And yeah, so that could be a fun thing. My YouTube channel is also called the 10-Minute Bible Hour, and at Matt Whitman TMBH is a good place to find me on Twitter. And last time around, I didn't mention No Dumb Questions, but we talked about Destin Brady getting in fistfights, but we never mentioned the fact that, hey, I do a podcast with my buddy Destin Sandlin from Smarter Every Day, and that's called No Dumb Questions. You can check that out too.
Yes, I highly recommend all of the stuff that Matt does, especially the podcast, the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. I have a question, though, and I'm going to put you on the spot. I thoroughly enjoy it.
All right.
Did you pick the book of Matthew because your name is Matthew?
No.
Too much
hard
hesitant.
no.
I'm totally joking. Of course you didn't. I know that.
Could you pick the next book of Joshua for unrelated reasons?
Also no, for unrelated reasons. I won't pick the book of Robert either.
It's a good one, man. It's really
no,
short, too.
I will tell you, though, the reason I picked Matthew is because I think it's a really clean read from an other cultural perspective. It's written to a first century Eastern Mediterranean audience. And I really like storytelling, and I like backstory, like the stuff we just did. This kind of thinking about storytelling is what I'm trying to subject the Bible to. And so Matthew seemed like a good place to start because it's a long time ago in a cultural galaxy far away. And so yeah, you got to learn about what's going on with the Romans and the Greeks and the Assyrians and the Persians and all of this different stuff. So I really like going into things that are way beyond the Bible to try to think about what the character motivations are, where they're coming from, and then ultimately, I mean, you know this, Bob, you listen to it. I mean, the social contract of the podcast is it's the internet. You do you. You land wherever you want. You make of it whatever you want. I'm in charge of nothing. I'm the arbiter of nothing. I just really like unpacking the stories that cast a very long shadow and have made a big difference. And culturally and in my own life, the story that the book of Matthew deals with, I cast the longest shadow. It's the most interesting story to me, so that's why I picked it.
And for anybody listening, I thoroughly agree. If you like listening to Matt talk about Star Wars, imagine that same level of detail about the Bible, but not in a I want you to believe what I believe way.
Yep.
In a let's look at it as a document that has some really fantastic storytelling and implications regardless of where you fall on it. That's the way I look at it. It's great.
Yeah, thanks for the vouch, buddy.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Josh, where can people find you?
I'm mostly on Instagram at Josh_MakeStuff.
You can find all of us, except for Matt. You already know where to find him. You can find the rest of us at I Like to Make Stuff on all the different networks and things. If you are listening to this before Christmas, which I think is a physical impossibility,
What day is now?
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to it after Christmas, Merry Christmas for 2021. Get that out of the way now. Happy New Year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you have a great holiday season, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.